More and more people are turning to spiritual explanations for physical symptoms that traditional medicine can't seem to solve. Because, on a deeper level, something inside senses. There's another kind of intelligence at work behind what the body reveals. And for many, a spiritual awakening begins just like that, as a language surfacing through the skin, the muscles, the gut, long before the mind can catch up. Carl Jung once wrote, "The body is the unconscious made visible." That's exactly what happens during a spiritual awakening. Old patterns begin to crack, the persona fractures, the shadow rises. The ego tries to hold it all together, but can't contain the intensity of what's starting to break through. And in that friction, between what's dying and what's being born, the body feels it. Everything that's been locked away starts to stir, and the old order dissolves into a chaos too vast for words, so it spills out as symptoms. And these symptoms echo across those walking the path of awakening, like notes in a soul's symphony. In this video, we're going to explore 11 physical symptoms that often accompany a spiritual awakening. Think of this as a map, a guide to help you recognize where you are in the journey, and maybe even glimpse where your soul is trying to lead you. So watch till the end. Really watch. Because understanding this process can radically shift the way you move through the calling. And when you're done, I invite you to take the next step. Check out the video, The 12 Stages of Spiritual Awakening, right here on the channel. I'll leave it in the cards and the description. It goes deeper into the path, and might just help you see more clearly where you are, and what comes next. There are moments when the body becomes pure vibration. Without warning, it reacts as if something is moving through it. Subtle tremors in the hands, goosebumps running down the spine, waves of heat or energy rising from the legs to the crown of the head, like an invisible current getting switched on from within. There's no fever, no chill, no obvious cause, but there is movement, and it carries a force that's more than just physical. It's archetypal. This is the first symptom of spiritual awakening. Tremors, chills, and energy surges. It's often mistaken for anxiety, but in the context of awakening, its origin is different. The energy field is reorganizing. The nervous system, sensitive and finely tuned, is reacting to the rise of something long dormant. Something deep begins to stir, and the body, as a channel, responds. Ancient cultures had names for this energy: Kundalini, Chi, Akse, Prana. Jung described this reawakening as the resurgence of primal instincts long suppressed by civilization. The body is no longer just biological. It becomes an archetypal instrument where ancient flows of life seek to move again. The mind might not understand it, but the body knows. These experiences often happen when the root chakra, solar plexus, or crown center are activated by an inner impulse stronger than reason. They're the centers of survival, willpower, and connection, now being touched by a higher charge of awareness. The soul stops being an abstract idea and starts taking up real space. And the body, once trained to run on autopilot, is now being shaken awake. It's at this point that many get scared. They look for neurological explanations, medical causes, or simply try to ignore what's happening. But these reactions aren't asking for a fix. They're asking to be heard. Because what's moving in these moments isn't just energy. It's the release of an ancient memory. It's the body saying, "I'm ready to remember." In truth, the body becomes a living ritual. Every shiver, every tremor, every tingle is a reminder that consciousness is descending from the head into the flesh. And as uncomfortable as it may feel, this surge is also a cleansing, a symbolic unclogging. Something was stuck. Now it's moving. It's not about trying to control it or overanalyzing it. The invitation is something else: to allow. Let the body speak. Breathe with it. Be present to what unfolds. Because at this stage there is no logic, only rhythm. And it's that rhythm that begins to carve the path. The second physical symptom of spiritual awakening is hearing sounds that don't come from the outside world. A constant ringing in the ears, a high-pitched tone that shows up in silence. Frequencies that seem to pierce the air, but no one else hears them. For those going through it, it feels strange, like something's interfering with your hearing, a signal coming from an unseen realm. It's not auditory hallucination. It's not a sensory glitch. It's psychic sensitivity opening up. In this phase, the ears stop functioning as just biological tools. They become symbolic organs of subtle reception. Jung would say, the outer hearing starts being flooded by inner content. The psyche, trying to rise, searches for a way through. and finds a portal in sound. The soul wants to be heard, and it starts using frequency as a language. These sounds, sometimes metallic, sometimes vibrational, tend to appear when rational activity drops sharply. Deep meditations, long silences, sleepless hours in the middle of the night, moments when the unconscious seizes the opportunity to surface. And since it doesn't yet have images or words, it speaks as sound. Hermes, the messenger of the gods, was also the guardian of crossroads. And in inner listening, there's always a crossroads, between the visible and the invisible, the noise of daily life and the whisper of the unconscious. The archetype of the messenger comes alive in this symptom, as if each unidentified sound carried a coded message from the soul, something we don't yet know how to translate, but which has already begun to speak. It's common to ignore it, to cover your ears, to blame it on fatigue, but the more you resist, the more it persists. Because it's not about the sound itself, it's about the shift in frequency it reveals. The body is learning to listen in a new way. And the discomfort isn't a disease, it's a recalibration. There's something sacred in these sounds. Not for what they say, but simply because they exist. They mark the beginning of a kind of listening that goes beyond reason. A listening that starts in the eardrum, but ends in the soul. The third physical symptom of spiritual awakening often shows up at the body's center, the digestive system. Unexplained nausea, sudden changes in appetite, a more sensitive gut, discomfort even without dietary changes. This isn't just a stomach bug, it's a direct reflection of an inner field being reshaped. The belly is where digestion lives, but not just of food. It also processes what the mind can't yet handle. Jung, always attuned to symbols, spoke of psychic indigestion, when the unconscious, overwhelmed by new content, spills into the body as symptoms. The stomach, intestines, liver, they all become stages for a silent attempt to deal with a symbolic overload that hasn't yet taken form. During awakening, deep content rises to the surface. Memories, beliefs, forgotten traumas, repressed desires. And even without naming them, the body feels them. It's like the soul is trying to digest a meal it never ordered. And the belly, overloaded, responds with imbalance. The gut is often called the second brain, not just because of its neural complexity, but for its deep link with our visceral unconscious. It's where the body reacts to our most primal emotions: fear, disgust, guilt, shame. That's why, in this phase, many feel like they're being turned inside out, as if the body is trying to reorganize years of emotional buildup. What this phase requires isn't a new diet or tighter control. It's presence. It's not about fixing the symptom, but noticing what's being symbolically rejected. What's hard to digest? Which part of your story is resurfacing as heaviness, nausea, or heartburn? What is your soul trying to eliminate? Awakening stirs the gut, quite literally. But this discomfort isn't punishment. It's part of a necessary emptying, a kind of internal cleansing that clears the way for new vitality. When the soul changes, the body must learn to digest differently. And sometimes, that starts with what it can no longer tolerate. The fourth physical symptom of spiritual awakening is a fatigue that rest doesn't fix. The body feels heavy, motivation vanishes. You wake up tired, even if you've done nothing strenuous. Simple tasks become a challenge. A strange kind of slowness settles in, like your life force has been drained from the inside out. It's tempting to label it laziness or lack of drive, but this exhaustion has a different source. It's not coming from the body. It's reaching the body from somewhere deeper. It's as if the ego, long used to carrying everything alone, is finally surrendering. The old mode of operating no longer makes sense, and the entire system shuts down to reset. Jung described this as the moment when the ego, worn out from trying to stay in control, begins to make room for the self. This transition isn't gentle. It requires deep psychic energy. In this light, exhaustion is a sign that your soul is hard at work, clearing, rearranging, and reorganizing years of accumulation. It's just that this work is invisible, silent, internal. While the mind pushes to keep going, the body pulls back. It slows down, demands stillness. Because there's a difference between functioning and moving with truth. And at this stage of awakening, that truth is still forming, so everything feels paused. But it's not. This kind of fatigue won't go away with more effort, and certainly not with guilt. It asks for surrender, not as in giving up, but in crossing over. It's a passage between doing on autopilot and acting with presence. The soul is saying, stop, go inward. What comes next can't be built with the same rhythm as before. Resting, at this point, becomes a spiritual act. Not an escape, but a form of listening. The body needs reorientation. And sometimes, to do that, it powers down everything non-essential, including your willpower. The fifth physical symptom shows up in the chest. Sudden heart palpitations. Waves of heat rising from your core. A pressure in the heart, as if something's trying to break through your ribcage. There's no physical exertion, no clear trigger, but the body pulses, heats up, reacts. At this stage, the heart isn't just an organ. It becomes a psychic center in upheaval. Jung saw the heart as the ultimate symbol of emotional wholeness, a meeting point of instinct and awareness. When the self begins to rise, it often touches the heart first, because it touches what was once denied. Emotions repressed, pain unprocessed, affection locked away. As the soul awakens, it starts melting the emotional ice that's built up over years. And that thaw isn't silent. The energy needs to move, to flow, to expand. And it chooses the most human path, the heart. That inner heat isn't fever, it's release. Layers of emotion being stirred from within. Not to hurt, but to move out. Alongside this, tears may come without reason. Sudden waves of anxiety, or even moments of unexplained joy. There's no linear logic here, only openness. What was once buried is now accessible, and that can be terrifying, because an open heart also reveals vulnerability. But that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a doorway. The body is saying, there's still life in here. There's still something to feel. There's still truth that wants to flow. If you feel your chest react, don't shut it down. Don't run. Breathe through it. Place your hand there. Be with it. Because the self, at this stage, doesn't arrive as a thought. It enters as a presence that pulses. And your body, in its generosity, lets that presence pass through the center. The sixth physical symptom tends to surface when things should be still. Sleep disruption. Insomnia in the middle of the night with no clear cause. You wake up around 3 or 4 a.m., as if something invisible is calling you. And when you do fall asleep again, your dreams become intense. Vivid symbols, emotional waves, scenes that linger long after you wake. The body needs rest, but the soul is in session. And the unconscious doesn't care about bedtime. Jung called dreams letters from the unconscious to the conscious. And during awakening, those letters don't stop coming. They arrive with urgency. The body, in its attempt to rest, becomes the messenger. It's not just insomnia, not just vivid dreaming. It's the symbolic mind working overtime to integrate long-buried material. The self, still unable to fully act during the day, uses sleep's vulnerability to reach you. The result? A tired body, but a soul in motion. Some report recurring nightmares, encounters with archetypal figures, sensations of presence in the room, even sleep paralysis. It can be unsettling, and sometimes frightening. But there's a hidden purpose in this nocturnal chaos. To shatter the ego's defenses and open space for what's been excluded. Sleep becomes a territory of integration. Many ignore it, take pills, try to force rest. But this disturbance isn't illness, it's ritual. What the conscious mind avoids by day, the unconscious pushes through at night. And even if the mind can't grasp it, the body senses something profound is being reorganized. So if sleep vanishes and dreams come in floods, don't try to control. Write them down. Pay attention. Look for the patterns. These dream fragments aren't random. They're coded messages from the soul. And sometimes, the only way they can be heard is by waking you up in the middle of the night. The seventh symptom is a hypersensitivity that seems to hijack the senses. Sounds that once felt normal now feel harsh. Artificial lights become irritating. Crowded spaces that used to be tolerable now feel overwhelming. It's not fussiness. It's not fragility. It's the soul, raw and unfiltered, experiencing the world in its unmasked state. When the ego is intact, it acts as armor. It shields, it protects, it buffers. But as awakening progresses, that armor begins to crack. And what was once filtered through subtle defenses now arrives full force. The body starts acting like a radar, picking up everything, amplifying everything. Loud music, strong smells, someone's expression. Everything hits deeper. Jung said that the more conscious a person becomes, the more exposed they feel. Not in the sense of weakness, but of openness. The psyche, once insulated, expands into a broader perception, and the body signals this shift. The sensitivity becomes an alarm, alerting that something inside can no longer handle the noise of external dissonance. This stage can be isolating. People avoid gatherings, events, even the grocery store or public transport. The world feels like too much, too loud, too full. But this withdrawal isn't disconnection, it's recalibration. The body is trying to tune in to a new frequency, and until that balance is found, anything out of sync feels jarring. The armor is gone. The nervous system is exposed. And in that exposure lies a rare beauty, the ability to feel more deeply. Tiny sounds become music. A simple gesture carries meaning. Nature itself brings physical relief. Sensitivity, once seen as a problem, starts becoming a compass. It's not about escaping the world. It's about learning to live in it again, with a new skin, thinner, more alive, more open. The body is teaching you that presence now demands discernment, and that not everything, or everyone, or every place is aligned with someone who's learning to listen with their whole being. The eighth symptom shows up in your most automatic choices. Food. Suddenly, certain foods you've always eaten now cause discomfort or aversion. Others, which never interested you, become cravings. Your appetite shifts in subtle but definitive ways, as if the body is instinctively choosing what still nourishes it and what no longer fits. This isn't about diet trends or willpower. It's about energetic coherence. The body, realigning with the soul, starts rejecting what's out of sync with the new frequency forming within. Highly processed foods, heavy meats, sugary drinks, what once numbed now disrupts. It feels heavier, clashes, registers as noise. Jung saw hunger as symbolic, a deeper craving for meaning. And during awakening, that craving emerges in unexpected ways. It's not just the stomach asking, it's the spirit seeking something it can't yet name. So often, food becomes metaphor. Some days, nothing satisfies, because what's missing isn't calories, but presence, connection, truth. Meanwhile, new desires appear. More fruits, roots, water, or even spontaneous fasting. The body starts asking for what supports its inner crossing. Appetite becomes a conversation. Every food choice takes on meaning. Does this bring me closer to myself or further away? Does this numb or clarify? In this symptom, there's a reconnection with care. Eating stops being just functional. It becomes an act of listening. Food becomes symbolic of what you allow yourself to receive from the world. And often, the body only accepts what feels clean, not just physically, but symbolically. If your tastes have changed, if hunger feels different, if old meals now feel wrong, pay attention. The body is telling you. Something has been recalibrated, and what once fed the old self can no longer sustain who you're becoming. The ninth symptom of spiritual awakening shows up as release. Suddenly, you cry, out of nowhere. No obvious reason, but your eyes fill. Sometimes it's anger, dry, long-held, demanding release. Other times, a weight in the chest, a lump in the throat, an emotional overflow that can't be stopped. And the body responds the only way it knows how, trembling, crying, exhaling, breaking open what no longer fits. These emotional outbursts aren't breakdowns. They're relief valves. For years, maybe decades, the body held back what couldn't be expressed, felt, processed. And now, as awakening unfolds, everything stored behind the ego, the persona, the performance, begins to come out. Through skin, voice, gut. The body becomes the channel through which the soul finally gets to cleanse. Jung said, "What we do not confront in ourselves, we meet as fate." But before it becomes fate, it often shows up as a symptom. And before it becomes chronic, it may emerge as an emotional purge. Tears without a story. Rage that flares up in seconds. Ancient pain that finally finds release. These moments can feel disorienting. Life might seem fine, yet the body collapses. The mind tries to make sense, but can't. And that's where healing begins. It's not about understanding. It's about allowing. This isn't about analyzing emotion. It's about giving it room to move. The soul doesn't want you to control it. It wants you to be with it, present, breathing as the emotion passes like an ancient wave. The body is wise. It won't release what you're not ready to feel. But when it does release, trust it. It means the time has come. If the tears come, cry. If the anger rises, acknowledge it. If the trembling starts, embrace it. What's leaving isn't weakness, it's weight. Old burdens being lifted to make space for something lighter. The 10th symptom hides in strategic corners of the body. A clenched jaw upon waking. A stiff neck despite no strain. A heavy back like you're carrying something invisible. These spots don't ache without reason. They're where the unspoken has been stored for too long. The body speaks, but when it's not heard, it stores. It holds what wasn't expressed, swallowed or transformed. And each tense region holds a meaning beyond biomechanics. The neck, for instance, bridges head and heart. When it stiffens, it may reflect a conflict between thought and feeling. The jaw, where we suppress words, anger, unmade decisions. And the back, the classic stage where we load responsibilities, inherited roles, expectations we never agreed to carry. During awakening, these areas become pain points because old patterns begin to dissolve. The body, which once bore emotional silence with rigidity, starts to release. And release hurts. The muscle structure that propped up the persona can no longer sustain what isn't real. Pain doesn't punish. It warns. This weight is no longer yours. Jung saw the body as an extension of the psyche. He believed symptoms were the body's way of expressing psychic content that hadn't yet been integrated. In other words, where it hurts, there's a story, a message, a soul asking to be heard. That's why trying to fix the pain with stretches or medication may quiet the scream, but it won't heal its root. The goal here isn't to fix the body, it's to listen, really listen. To place your hand on what aches and ask, what have you been holding for so long? What is this tension that isn't just physical, but symbolic? And what needs to be said, released, or let go of for this spot to finally relax? The body is not an obstacle on the path to consciousness. It is the path, and if it hurts, it's because something inside can no longer pretend everything is fine. The final physical symptom of spiritual awakening is one that confuses even those familiar with the process. Lightheadedness that appears at rest. A shaky feeling while walking. Moments when reality feels off, like something's shifted, but no one else notices. It's subtle, but it's real. The body feels it, even if the mind tries to dismiss it. This disorientation isn't just physical, it's perceptual. Time flows differently. Space stretches or contracts. Words take longer to make sense. Some days, you feel out of body, or maybe just out of the self you used to identify with. And as uncomfortable as that is, it's happening for a reason. The old map has stopped working. Jung saw the breakdown of psychic structure as essential to individuation. When the old self loses its center, the inner world starts to rearrange. And that reorganization doesn't begin with clarity. It begins with disorientation. What once felt safe, routines, beliefs, patterns, begins to dissolve. And the body, trying to keep up, wobbles. The mind calls it confusion, but it's more than that. It's a temporary unmooring, like a compass that's lost its north. Not because it's broken, but because the magnetic field has changed. The old orientation was built on survival. The new one will be built on truth. And the in-between feels unstable. This symptom is hard to accept because it strikes at the foundation, our sense of reality. But maybe that's the point. Spiritual awakening doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It unravels. It destabilizes. It disarms. Because before it can rebuild consciousness, it has to dismantle the stage where the old character played it safe. You're not losing yourself. You're losing what was never truly you. And in that space, in the dizziness, the confusion, the fragile in-between, a new center begins to emerge. Still delicate, still unnamed, but alive. The body awakens with the soul. Not as a side character, but as a silent protagonist in a transformation that few can see, but you can feel completely. It doesn't follow labels or formulas. It reacts, contracts, speaks. And when the soul starts moving toward the self, the body answers with everything it's been holding. Pain, tension, heat, sleep, revulsion, emotion. Nothing is random. Nothing is small. During this process, it's easy to think something's wrong, that you're breaking down, failing, getting sick. But when these physical symptoms are seen symbolically, they reveal something else. A body that refuses to carry what no longer fits. A system that's realigning with a more honest consciousness. And that takes effort, time, presence. Jung said the self isn't an idea. It's a living experience of wholeness. And the path to it doesn't happen only in the mind. it passes through the body. Every symptom is a symbolic portal, a breaking point that announces something new is trying to be born. But to be born, it needs space, and the body creates that space, often through pain. So don't treat your symptoms as enemies or obstacles. See them as language, as signs of your journey back to yourself. The fever with no cause, the changed appetite, the recurring insomnia, the tears that don't follow logic. All of it carries messages, not to be rushed through, but to be met with presence. The self speaks from within, but it anchors in the body. And if your body is screaming, maybe it's because it's time to stop silencing what you feel, to listen without running, to be with what hurts. Not as someone suffering, but as someone awakening. Awakening has no end. It moves in spirals, peeling layers, crumbling certainties, remaking connections. And the body will keep walking with you, as an ally, a mirror, a living ritual. If you've made it this far, maybe you already know. What hurts isn't breaking you. It's revealing you. If this video spoke to parts of you that have been quiet, leave a comment below. My body is awakening. That way, I'll know you stayed until the end, and that this message found a home in you. And if this content truly moved you, consider clicking the thanks button below. Even a small contribution makes a big difference and helps this channel keep growing and reaching more people. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take good care of what your body is trying to show you.